Maurice Nicoll, Psychological Commentaries, Volume 4, Amwell, May 19th, 1951. Beauty in the Pure Eternus. To receive this work negatively is useless. To receive it from fear or duty is useless. To receive it very heavily and seriously is useless. To receive it only formatively is useless. In the long run, the work has to become emotional. Unless you feel the beauty of the work, unless you desire it as something lovely, it cannot make right contact with you, which is to say, in short, that you cannot make contact with the higher centers. There's a certain beauty in everything which cannot be imitated by seriousness. Do you think it would be any good for a person like me to take up ballet dancing as seriously as I could, or any other form of exercise? I know I'm clumsy and my sense of beauty, which runs through other things, does not run through this. We can see beauty in different ways. Golfers see beauty in a stroke made by a champion. Fencers see beauty in their own movements. Footballers see beauty in dribbling. Cricketers see beauty in a bowler and a batsman, and so on, in thousands of different ways. A man who sees no beauty has not got a connecting link between the higher center and lower centers. Now, seeing beauty in something is to love it. I may go to cricket matches all through the season in pouring rain, but never feel for a moment that it is due to a sense of compulsion. A sense of beauty is not a sense of duty. What we feel is beautiful, we will. But if we do this work through a sense of duty, we have got it wrong. Although at first we can start like this. Let me tell you a little secret. It is very wonderful when you realize that you have a right not to be negative. Note the words, not. To have no right to be negative. It is a most beautiful experience. In this connection, let us take up the subject of identifying. I say simply to you that it is wonderful to begin to see that you do not need to identify with all the things which you are identified. I will make myself the victim so that you can feel superior to me. Suppose at this moment when I observe myself, I notice I am identified with wondering whether I should get another bottle of medicine, whether the medicine does me much good, whether I should eat more or less, whether I should go away for my health's sake for a time, whether I should order a warm suit for next winter, whether I should really cut down my smoking or not, whether X is any good for the work or Y, whether I should put my foot down somewhere or not, and so on. Now that is a resume of my power of self-observation at the moment, which you all should have. With all these things I've mentioned as the victim, I'm identified to a certain extent. And all this is taking force from me the whole time. Now it is a very beautiful thing to realize, as you will after a time, that you need not be identified with all these small things. I say it is a beautiful thing to have this realization. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, I am not identified in connection with these things that I mentioned, but they were things which I used to be identified. But of course, as you know, this is always the question. Can we afford a refrigerator or a washing machine? Which would be better? Now, at every act of non-identification saves force. It requires a conscious act, which simply means that you become conscious that you're identified with something and you draw force from it and cease to identify. To identify, that force is taken away from you. To non-identify means that you take the force away from what you identify with. Now, you cannot non-identify without a certain degree of self-remembering. As you know, external life makes us identify everywhere and at every point. You go and shout and scream at a football match, or you're frightfully worried about the Korean situation. But it is quite useless. You can learn nothing from being identified. In fact, it stops you from understanding anything. The more you are identified with someone in the name of trying to help them, the less you will understand them. So therefore, I say to you that there is great beauty in realizing that identifying, as the work says, is the only emotion we know, the emotion of being identified. I repeat, there is great beauty in realizing that it is unnecessary to be identified, and you have the sanction of the work not to identify. Here lies great beauty, and it has something to do with connecting with higher centers eventually. I will repeat again, it is not merely that you must not identify, but that because that puts it in the form of a commandment. There are no commandments of that kind in this work. The beauty lies in realizing that you have a right not to be negative, and without that realization, you cannot remember yourself. All self-remembering has to do with the fact is that you came down to this earth, and life here does not correspond with what you came down from. And something in you knows it, that is, has not forgotten it. And that means remembers it. Identifying makes everything ugly, but the sense of beauty connects us with the two worlds of spirit and matter, so has to do with the intermediary or pure arturnus.